President Biden deciding not to extend the August 31st deadline for withdrawing from Afghanistan. The president citing a major security risk at the airport, a risk that grows bigger every single day U.S. troops remain on the ground there. He says that he asked for contingency plans in case forces need to remain in the country longer. Evacuations have been rapidly increasing, but many Americans and Afghan allies are still desperately trying to get out. Joining me now, the former Defense Secretary William Cohen. Secretary, thank you so much. Appreciate you joining us. Good evening to you. Let's start by talking about the president holding steady on that deadline of withdrawal, just a couple of days, August 31st, 1 week left. Is it the right call?
Well, Don, time will tell on this for sure. But I have to say that I have mixed emotions today. I am profoundly grateful to our military. And I want everybody watching here or anywhere in the world to look at that military, to see what we're capable of, to see the kind of capability the individual soldiers and Marines and others have, going from humanitarians to peacekeepers to warriors and diplomats, all of that wrapped in one. And so we have to be enormously grateful to the job they're doing, along with our State Department personnel who are processing these visas at an incredible speed under the circumstances and at risk to their lives as well. I am depressed to see that there are going to be many people who won't get to the airport. That the Taliban has said shutting down the avenues or the access to the airport. That means fewer people will be getting on those planes. And that's something we have to recognize, that not everybody that supported us is going to get out, even though I think we have a moral obligation for them to get out. And I go back and look for parallels in time, and I was thinking of back in 1959, the French finally recognized Algerian independence after having as many as 500,000 troops in that country at some time. And de Gaulle said time to recognize the independence of Algeria. And he had many advisors at that point who said, but we've shed so much blood. And de Gaulle rather cynically said, blood dries quickly. And I think that's something we have to contend with and comprehend. Will the blood of those who have sacrificed, all of the veterans who have been in Afghanistan, who have lost friends and lost limbs, and all that they've given, will they forget this? Will be there a sort of moral amnesia? I don't think so. I think anybody who's been there will not forget. But you get to be president, you have to decide. And I've been on both sides of this issue, having served in Congress and saying, here's my recommendation, Mr. President, and then been in a cabinet and say, the president has to decide. Congress doesn't really make the decision. The president makes it. He's made it, and we'll have to see how it unfolds.
Okay, so let me say this, because I think that there's no denying that getting more than 70,000 people evacuated in 10 days, that is remarkable. It was a rough beginning, no doubt, right? You saw the pictures. What is your view of a successful threshold for these evacuations? And part two of that question, is it really realistic to think that America can or should be, maybe they should be, but can get every single person out of Afghanistan who wants to leave? Is that realistic?
I don't think so. I don't think it's possible, although we've seen in the past 10 days something that was seen as being disastrous go to something remarkable. So anything is possible, and nothing is inevitable until it happens. But nonetheless, I think trying to get everyone, every American, to be sure, but everyone who has supported us and worked with us, identify them and have them get through the checkpoint to get on those planes to get out, I think it's going to be virtually impossible. But we'll have to wait and see on that. But
even under
that's
the
why
best situation, was that realistic, even to get everyone out?
I don't think it's realistic, and I think that's what President Biden has tried to lay the foundation, saying we'll do our best. But first come the Americans, then come those who are in line with the proper identification visa and help. And I think that's all that's going to be accomplished, and some are going to be left behind. And the question is, will that blood dry quickly? There are people who will lose their lives. Now, we have some leverage over the Taliban. We have economic leverage. And by the way, with the CIA director having gone over there, it'll be interesting to find out what the nature of his conversations were.
Let me play this because you're responding to it. I want to play this because what the secretary is talking about is that William Burns met with the Taliban Mullah Abdullah in Kabul on Monday. The Taliban have set a red line on delaying the withdrawal, and this is what the Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby was asked today, and then we'll get the Secretary's response.
And are the public statements by the Taliban the same as the private statements being made to U.S. officials about the deadline and when U.S. should leave?
What I can tell you is that the Taliban have been very clear about what their expectations are as well.
But the public and private statements are the same?
Without getting into details, I'm not seeing much dissonance.
Okay, Secretary, you were speaking about that on that issue. Taliban calling the shots here. Please go on. Sorry for interrupting, but I wanted to play that for you.
They are calling the shots, but we have some leverage with them as well. After we leave, we certainly are going to have an intelligence capability, not as great as it has been, but nonetheless, and I won't predict this, but speculate about it, the Taliban may be calling upon our intelligence services to help save them from ISIS-K and from Al-Qaeda. I'm not predicting that, but nonetheless, they're going to be in trouble economically, and I think they'll be assaulted from the extremist groups, more extreme than they are. They'll have to fight that war as well. So I think the CIA director was probably sending a message about what our capabilities are, what our expectations are, and what will happen in the event that they don't abide by the agreement to date, and if they don't give us a little leeway after August 31st. I don't know that, but I'm delighted that Director Burns went there, opened a line of communication, and it's better that comes from the CIA than the State Department. That would give them too much legitimacy, and we're not ready and prepared to do that at this point, if ever. A lot will depend upon how they behave in the next month, weeks, and year before we have any sort of formal recognition, if any.
Secretary, the Trump administration helped release Baradar from prison. This was back in 2018. Pompeo met with him in 2020. Trump spoke with him on the phone in March of 2020 after making a deal with the Taliban. Did all this give the Taliban more clout than we bargained for?
I think it absolutely did. Former president said and boasted on television, one of his rallies, I boxed in the military. I boxed in Biden. I did that deliberately so he would have little move, or they would have little room for maneuver. And so President Biden comes in, he has little room for maneuver, but he extended it somewhat. People can argue whether he should have extended a lot further at that point, but nonetheless, I think he was pretty much boxed in as the former president put him in that box to begin with. But I want to come back to this. This is not something that's a political decision on the part of President Biden in the sense of it being partisan or political in motivation. This is philosophical for him. He is absolutely opposed to our continued presence in Afghanistan and was opposed, I think, pretty close to the beginning once he saw that we expanded the mission to nation building. And I've said this on this network. If you're going to engage in nation building in a foreign country, you better be prepared to be there not 20 years, but 40 and 50 and maybe even 100 years to try and change the culture. We're still trying to change the culture here in this country. And the notion that a foreign occupation force could come in and try and change our culture in a 20-year period, I think is pretty ridiculous. So we have to get a little more conscious of cultural sensitivity, a little more cultural intelligence, as our generals have said in the past. We're not aware of the tribal nature of Afghanistan. We weren't aware of it. We didn't take it into consideration. We thought that we could actually, in a 20-year period, build something resembling a Western-style democracy. Almost impossible to conceive. So I think we've learned, I hope we've learned this lesson again, that we have to have a real focused mission and not expand that mission beyond our capabilities. And if we're going to do that, do it from the outset saying we're going to be there a long time and we're going to spend more and more money and risk more and more lives. But I don't think the American people want that. And I think that this, again, is a philosophical decision more than a political or partisan one. And I think we'll have to see how it unfolds for the president. He made the decision. We're going to have to live with it as best we can. I think a lot of people will suffer as a result of it. I think the Afghan people are going to suffer. I think the women certainly are going to suffer as a result of Taliban rule. but we'll have to see whether we have any leverage to persuade them. And maybe they've learned to see that their society has changed, at least in the urban areas, and with the society now having access to technology. I don't know the answer to that. I don't think anybody knows, but we're in a position to, like a python, squeeze them economically and diplomatically, and ultimately from an intelligence point of view, certainly not bring any assets to bear that might help them in the future than they may need.
Yeah.
And one final thing. We
Yes.
haven't talked about COVID. We talked about COVID here in the United States. We haven't talked about COVID in Afghanistan. I don't know how many coming in. I hope they're all being checked for COVID coming into our country. But if COVID is spreading in Afghanistan, they're not going to be able to carry on as a society if they're dying. So we have some leverage to be sure, some help to be sure that they're going to need in order to survive as a functioning government. And we'll have to wait and see how that plays out.
We're smarter for having spoken with you, as we always are. Thank you, Secretary Cohen. Appreciate it.
Good to be with you.